Okay, so I didn't come here prepared to speak, as you can probably tell by the wardrobe, but when the word reboot came up, it made me think of how I moved from England to Wyoming. We'll get to that. And it was a very literal reboot of everything. It was friend circle, it was where I lived, it was what I did for a living. And it's the reason that I've always, well, I say always, I actually started off life wanting to play professional soccer for Middlesbrough Football Club. And that dream died on March the 2nd when I was 19 years old. And that's because I realized I was terrible. I got a trial at a 4th tier team and bombed out. So I'm an innovative guy, so I decided I wanted to coach for a living. I went to university to do sports science and sports psychology, and I always wanted to be a coach. And I spent 4 years after graduation, which is the part they never tell you about, struggling with that. I got a job as a psychology teacher at a high school in Loughborough in England, and I was an assistant coach for the Loughborough High School team. And that was going very well. We won a couple of British championships. We'd have guys go on and go professional after playing for us, which was all very nice for the resume, and it looked very nice from the outside looking in, and people thought I was doing well, but the reality was I was getting paid to be a teacher and teaching 60, 70 hours a week and coaching 5 to 8 hours a week and investing all my identity in the coaching part. So I kind of looked in the mirror and I saw a fraud looking back, and it was a very unfulfilled 4 years. And I was lucky to get a very random opportunity to get out of it. I got a phone call. Well, actually, I'll preface it with why I made this outrageous decision to quit that job for a 3-month contract. I know I'm building this up here, but I went on a vacation with my friend Dan Story, who was always a very inspirational guy, and he was into Tony Robbins, and he was into self-help, and he was into personal development, and I sort of liked what he had to say, but never really fully bought it. But he kind of forced me to read a book called Unlimited Power that makes you look in the mirror about how you think about a few things. And one chapter that stuck with me is the rut of life, where you can get caught in a routine of doing things that your friends expect you to do on weekends, doing things that you have to do in your work life, and before you know it, only 5 to 10 hours a week are actually yours and you doing what it is that you want to do, which really struck a chord with me. And I ended up I had a friend James and a friend Dan again who worked in soccer, and they put some feelers out. And Dan called me and he said, you know how you're always complaining and whining and I have to listen to you all the time, how unhappy you are. If you got a chance to coach soccer full time, would you take it? I was like, yeah. He's like, would you? I was like, yeah. He said, okay. There's a 3-month contract in Cody, Wyoming to be the head coach of a high school team, and that's all you have to do. So I was like, oh. Nice one. So I kind of saw it as a test. You know, I'm not going to tell people how I think religion, but I think it was really getting asked a question of, do you really want to do this? And put aside the fear of what about the end of that 3 months, do you want to do it? So I did. I quit a psychology teaching job, which played very well. I left an apartment full of furniture and didn't even sign the lease to move out. Terrible life lesson in there if any Bates students are listening. Don't act like that. And I flew to Denver, which was one state up from what, Cody, Wyoming. So I'm like, okay, that's fine. And people, yeah, I didn't know what you know, so I'd never actually drove more than 40 minutes in my life. For perspective, you can get from the east coast to the west coast of England in less than 2 hours. And you can get from the top of England to the south, where you wouldn't even want to go anywhere if you were born where I was born, in 5 hours. So I landed, and I was given, the guy was there in a real Salt Lake tracksuit, because it was who the contract had gone through, and he gave me a rental car key and MapQuest for, I think it was 970 mile, and he was like, have a nice life. And he left me, and I almost cried for the first time as an adult that I can remember. I was like, what am I doing? So I got in the car, and I remember seeing signs like towns that said Highland population 14. I'm like, if I hit somebody, do they edit that sign? It was the kind of the kind of thing I'd never experienced, and it was really new. So I end up pulling in, and it's really dark, and I just want to go to bed. So I go into this little shack where I ended up living for 3.5, 4 months, scared to go outside for 2 reasons. One is I'd never felt very welcome in Wyoming, sadly. And 2 is there's a lot of things that can kill you. So whoever said they're going to change the trip to the mountains, don't. Buffaloes, bears, everything. So I woke up the next day and I looked out and it was beautiful, but I saw like a buffalo roaming and I'd heard the stories about bears. I'm like, what have I done, man? This is not a good decision. So I went to drink my sorrows away because that's how I dealt with things. Again, to the students in the room, learn my lessons. That's not productive either. And within 5 minutes, a stranger sits next to me, and his first words were, and this is the first anyone spoke to me since they told me to drive 900 miles, "You ain't from round here, boy." No, you are correct. But the good thing that came out of this absolute disaster is I probably focused on the work I was doing more than at any other time in my life. You know, my friends weren't there. You know, so many times you're tempted to make a call and go out instead of doing something maybe more productive, or you just go kill time somewhere more comfortable. But the reality is it was about 3-4 months where there was no comfort place for me, so I probably invested more mental energy and more work into that team than I had done ever before. It was very successful. We ended up doubling almost the school's record for wins in a season, and it ended up giving me some real concrete belief that this is maybe something I could do for a living, and then, you know, call it luck if you believe in luck, or call it getting what you deserve if you believe in karma. But I ended up getting a 2-year contract to work with a professional team in Utah from that job, and here I am 11 years later. I still haven't got on the plane home, which I was desperate for, about 4 hours after landing in America. So I certainly wouldn't say my career is you know, in the final chapter or anything now, but if you were ever, you know, in a position, and I say this to the students I coach at Bates all the time, if you're ever in a position where you can get your life as much in line as possible with you waking up and doing what it is you enjoy doing, you know, it's up to you what it is, then it's certainly, I would say, the best decision I ever made.